and has even been awarded an MBE for her work supporting fellow survivors. Here to tell us more about how she's now feeling better than ever, please welcome the one and only Mel B.
To be here, honestly.
You look incredible.
Good hair and makeup and good lighting, let me tell you. And thank you for doing the campaign this week. It's so important what you're doing.
Well,
spreading the message.
And it's so... We really appreciate you being here as well today, Mel, because, as you say, we've launched it just this week. We were talking earlier about the response it's had so far. It's been absolutely incredible, and we're just hoping to sort of highlight this conversation. It's been taboo for long enough, as you well know. And we're shining a very important light on it. Sadly, you know just too much about it, and being in a situation, not being able to speak out, not being able to find this inner strength that you always thought you had.
Yeah.
Which is why your book, Brutally Honest, which is out again now with extra chapters, because you've sort of done updates within it. You find that really difficult to write. And this is you, someone we all look up to. You've got a big voice, you're a big presence. And you struggled so much to find yourself during this whole period.
I mean, I think when it comes to abuse, you know, abuse can happen to anybody. It doesn't have an age limit, it doesn't have a colour. You know, it's just if an abuser wants to find you, they will find you. It's not like I woke up one day and I was like, oh, I'm going to marry an abuser and be with him for 10 years. No. I mean, they show up like Prince Charming or Queen Princess, you know, because it happens to both men and women.
Yeah.
And they infiltrate your life. So before you know it, you become isolated from your friends and family. And this just doesn't happen overnight. They chip away. And before you know it, you are completely isolated. You've got no access to your finances, your car. I mean, they take over your whole entire world. But they do it so cleverly. That's why it was important when I first released my book in 2018. At the back, there's like 15 signs of what abuse can look like. Because I don't think people realise, like, when you're in that abusive situation, how abused you are actually being. Because they do it very subtly. And they do it to everybody around you, not just you. You know, when you are in those kind of abusive situations, it's happening to your friends and your family at the same time, because they're being pushed away and you're being isolated. So it's you kind of feel trapped. And even though I was in my marriage for 10 years, trust me, I tried to leave about 6 or 7 times. But then I ended up going back, whether it be through blackmail or, you know, what about my kids or what's my job going to say. That's why it's so important that we can have, like, an open conversation. But it needs to be more than just an open conversation.
Do you think that's some of the key things that abusers do? They kind of limit you from actually feeling like you could get away. So when you...
Oh, yeah, it's terrifying. You think, well, what am I going to do if I leave? Where can I go? I haven't called my mum or my friends in a couple of weeks, and then that goes to a couple of months and a couple of years. You know, it happens so gradual, and everybody thinks, oh, that would never happen to me. Well, when you see the signs of what abuse looks like, you know, it's just little things like if they're monitoring your phone, if they're saying, oh, I don't like that friend of yours, and you end up kind of separating yourself, but you don't quite know why. And it's all because this person shows up like God's gift, you know what I mean? So you want to believe that they love you and believe that you can trust them, but then once they've got you in that love-bombing zone, they just have a free-for-all. And they always do the same things at the same time. And I always think, if we understand what abuse looks like, if we know their patterns, then we need to educate ourselves more and be very aware of those warning signs. That's why it's so important that our kids know what a healthy relationship looks like. Like, we as adults know what that looks like too, so that if you see your friend or a family member that you think, you know, your gut instinct, you can always rely on your gut instinct. You know when something feels that a little bit off. And now, luckily, we have, you know, I'm patron of Women's Aid, so with this child, there's so much more support and there's so much more understanding and knowledge, but still, it's not enough. I mean, if I was in my situation right now, in like an abusive relationship, would I feel confident to call the police? Probably not, because they're not fully educated yet. Like, we need to get it more out there so we're more aware.
Most definitely. you know, you saying that about, you know, the police in different areas and signposts and it's not as much out there. I was shocked to read that you were saying there was many publishers that actually didn't want to do a book about abuse.
Oh, no, because my book is very, very honest. And, you know, I talk about all different levels of abuse that I went through and what I did to cope. You know, I did self-medicating, which is really common. I completely was just... I felt like I was going absolutely insane because I wasn't only just physically abused, I was emotionally abused. I was financially abused, yeah, on every single level. So you feel like you're doing everything wrong. And you feel, and then they encourage that feeling, so you end up feeling so insecure and so broken down. I mean, when I left my 10-year marriage, I went on tour with the Spice Girls in 2019. I ended up living in going from a mansion in LA to living in my mum's little bungalow, just me, her, and my kids. I was thinking, how did this happen? You know, and then writing this book was really cathartic. I wrote it with Louise Gannon, and I just wanted to be so honest and so direct. And because it was a bit of a taboo topic back then in 2017, 2018, no publisher really wanted to publish it. It's like, oh, no, we're not going to talk about that stuff. Yeah, it's an epidemic. You know, one woman, at least one woman a week gets killed by a former or present partner. That is in this country. So the epidemic isn't going anywhere. So we have to take control of it, from the justice system to the way that we teach our kids what healthy relationships look like. I mean, I could go on and on about this because it's not going anywhere.
But, mate, you are also a symbol of having lived all of that for such a long time. You have come out the other end. Here you are talking about and doing all the work that you're doing now with the charities in relation to domestic violence. And this is partly why, again, you wanted to add the chapters to the book, because it was... Your life has shifted. There is hope, because for so many people watching thinking, I can't get out of this. There's no hope. And when you lose hope, you've lost everything. But there is hope, and that's the point you're trying to make now.
I mean, I always say to anybody in those kind of situations, just seek help, or just, you know, like with my charity, you can call up anonymously. They'll listen to you, they'll support you, they'll get you from that unsafe place to a safe place. But by the way, we need more money for refugees, and because they're closing all the time. I think the more that we can talk about it, you know, because when you leave your abuser, it doesn't just end there. You then have to pick up the pieces. You're riddled with shame and guilt. You have to find
yourself again, don't you? That's what you've got to rebuild everything.
I'm 7 years out and I still have PTSD. I still have panic attacks, you know, because sometimes I really don't trust myself, because I'm thinking, how could I have trusted that person for 10 years when I thought he loved me?
How do you rebuild, and how do you trust again? Because you're engaged now, and you've moved on. You know, you said it's 7 years. It's obviously it's always going to be there. But how do you get to a stage, or what did you do to make yourself say, you know what, I trust myself enough now to trust this new person?
Well, I have good days and bad days, but my thing was, luckily, I got to be home with my mum during COVID in a small bungalow, which sounds horrendous, but I got to go back to my roots. And, you know, I got to educate my mum as well as educating myself what I'd been through, because, you know, my mum would say, well, you're fine now, you've left him. And I'd be thinking, yeah, well, I should be fine, I should be fine. But then I had to put myself back together again, you know, which is really, really hard, because I'm all about girl power and empowering women, yet I was completely girl powerless. I had no confidence, but my work was my saviour, because when I was at work, like in this environment, he wasn't allowed anywhere near me. And that's why I think it's really important for workplaces and HR to be able to spot the signs of domestic abuse and be able to help somebody at the workplace get out of that kind of situation. But in answer to your question, you know, I had to go through a lot of therapy.
Right.
And, you know, talking about it, it actually didn't work for me, because it was like reliving the abuse all over again. So I did, like, different alternative therapies. I did a lot of, which sounds quite barbaric, but I explain it in my book. I had a lot of, like, head tapping things, because your front lobes, because you're so full of trauma. So I didn't want to talk about it, so I wanted to ease the trauma by neuroscientifically kind of having these gadgets on my brain, which actually did ease my trauma a little bit. But I think it's the trauma that, you know, I'm going to have to live with side by side for the rest of my life. And I think with the statistics out there right now, we're all going to know somebody right now, people in the audience right now, have either suffered abuse or are suffering it, or you know somebody that is. So we have to kind of be sympathetic and make it a conversation like this so we can help.
Thank you.
Well, you've done incredible work, and like I say, very brutally honest, as it's called. It's a brutally honest book to read, very raw at times, incredibly difficult to write, I know, but hugely worth it. As Sunday Times bestseller, there's a message in there for everyone. We need happiness, we need empowerment back again, exactly what you're talking. We need Spice Girls back, basically.
Tell me about it.
We're kind of run out of time. Can you just give us even like a maybe would be enough?
Oh, no, we are definitely doing something. I'm probably going to get told off, but I've said it. There you go. This year.
That's the uplifting message I needed.
Really, I'm in trouble.
Don't worry. Just blame me. Mel, thank you so much. Mel B, everybody. As we mentioned earlier, there's lots more information about our domestic abuse campaign on our website, itv.com/loosewomen, where you'll find a dedicated page on all the details that you need to try to find help.